Good morning. My name is Valerie Webster. My pronouns are she, her, and I come before you as a member of the Board of Trustees to share a few announcements with you. I can't tell if Tech Deck is giving me directions. She says no, so I'll just keep going. A few announcements before we get started today. For those of you who came yesterday to take down the greens, thank you. That's always a thankless job, and so I'm here to thank you personally for participating in that. There will be an interfaith service for mental health at the Covenant Presbyterian Church on January the 7th at 6:30. And then we have the Augusta Canal cleanup January 11th. I believe that's next weekend at the Lake Olmsted Trail. And you can contact John Moore for information. Or any of these announcements you can see posted on the hallway or on the website, wherever you get your information. Community Connections will be on January the 16th at 5:45. Please come prepared to share your personal practices over the last month. And also be some fun thrown in, and childcare will be provided. We will be participating in the Dr. Reverend Martin Luther King parade. That's Saturday at 1 p.m. The lineup is a little earlier, 11, I think, at the Dyes Park Community Center. And you can walk the route if you like, or we have seating available too. Then 2 weeks from today is the mid-year congregational meeting. Nothing urgent to vote on, but just an update on the damage we've sustained from the recent hurricane. And then to finish out January, we have a Friday jazz concert on the 31st, so I hope you can join us for that, featuring Ed Fuqua. I got to say that name, just like Tim Hunter did. We'll start momentarily with the service, and thank you for being here today.
Welcome to the Unitarian Universalist Church of Augusta, where we gather together to create beloved community, guided by reason, compassion, and respect, empowering us to create a more just society. I'm your worship host today. My name is Cheryl Martin. I use she, her pronouns. Today I'll be co-creating the service with Reverend Nic Filzen. Although our choir is not here today, they're on a well-deserved break. I'll also be creating the service with our music director, Josef, Patchen, and our wonderful folks at the tech deck, and all of you here today. Thank you. If you're a first-time visitor, we encourage you to stop by the greeters table following the service to get more acquainted with the church. You're also more than welcome to join us after the service for coffee and snacks. And that will take place in the common room. Existing community members will know newcomers by either their green or red, I don't know why I'm stuck on yellow, green or red name tags. These different colors indicate how comfortable folks are with engaging with new people as they experience this community. Green means, please speak to me. Let's get to know each other right away. Red means, yeah, you can say hi to me, but I would rather get to know you more slowly over time. Whether you are here in person or joining us virtually, we welcome you as we begin a new year, a new chapter, and as we face all of our upcoming challenges, may we all do what we can to be there for one another. May we create beloved community. Let us now enter into our time of service.
Our chalice lighting words this morning are entitled Inscribing Our Pages with Hope by Reverend Dr. David Breeden. We tender this flame, opening the book, turning to a page yet to be written, opening a story yet to be told. May we fill this fresh page wisely. May we write a new story into being. May we together inscribe the page with hope.
Would you rise in body or spirit for our opening hymn, number 34, Though I May Speak with Bravest Fire?
Thank you.
In just a few moments, we'll perform one of my favorite rituals, the burning bowl. Each person who was here in person received a piece of flash paper from the greeters as you arrived today. Did anyone not get a piece of flash paper as they came in? Let me see, Nike, would you bring the bowl in? They'll bring it to you. So keep your hands up for a second, Nike, bring it to you. And as they are bringing it, I'll explain what was going on a little bit. This flash paper is specially treated paper that evaporates in fire, leaving no ash and no residue. For those joining via Zoom, I apologize that you don't have a piece of your own. I invite you to carefully burn another piece of paper near you or using your home chalice or other fire sparking tool. You can also do this ritual alone or with me next time you're here on campus. If you don't already have these items at home, I'll give you a few moments to find them before continuing, and that'll give folks here a chance to get one themselves.
When we deny our stories and disengage from tough emotions, they don't go away. Instead, they own us, they define us. Our job is not to deny the story, but to defy the ending.
I invite you, each of you, to reflect on the year behind you. Consider what story has a hold of you. We don't deny these stories, yet we may need to transform them for new stories to emerge.
What parts of our lives, what things, ideas, people, ways of living have become obstacles to becoming the people we want to be, the people we need to be, to become whole?
What story or stories do you tell yourself which are holding you back? What's getting in the way of you living as fully as you'd like to? What's keeping you from having a centered spirit?
What might you burn away so that it may become something new, so that you may become someone new?
Thinking about all these questions, I invite you now to write a word or two on the flash paper that you received about a story that you're bringing to a close. Nobody will see this except you, the flame, and the universe. I now invite folks, starting with this section over here, to form a line behind Cheryl and around the seats to Cheryl's right. And we'll use the shared flame here to light our paper on fire. If you're in the center section or the section to my left, when this section has completed going through, go ahead and go out through the double doors nearest you and re-enter through the single door by our library and continue the line. Once you've lit your paper on fire, you'll re-enter your row from the opposite side from which you came. As you approach the chalice, you will use our shared flame again to light your paper. Once lit, the flames will take this the paper very quickly. As the flame takes the paper, let it go like this. You may proceed. It'll be fine. If you have long sleeves on, maybe pull it up just a little bit.
Lift up.
Good job.
Good job.
The last row can come up, including the kids. Good job. Well done.
Oh, we got it.
It'll be fine.
We got a new thing.
Yeah, it'll evaporate it.
Don't go for it again.
There you go. You good? Are you okay, honey? You good? We got you. Afterwards, I'll get you.
You're welcome. Proceed. Good job. Good job.
I'll try this again. Now as our paper and those stories and maybe a little bit of hair is gone,
close with these words. Our chalice contains so much symbolism and meaning for us. Today, it acts as a shared, renewing flame. May it burn away that which is weighing on our hearts, our souls. May it ground us in that which we'd like to retain. May it spark transformation in us and through us. And may this good faith that we share allow each of us to flourish together. Blessed be. Now that we have loosened the grip of the stories which no longer serve us, let us sit in a period of silence and settle into the emerging story which is now.
Years ago, I was in the hospital recovering from major surgery. At least for the first day or so post-op, I was advised not to drink water. I was allowed, however, to suck on ice chips to help ease my dry mouth and throat. One of the people who came to visit me was Naomi Frost Hewitt. Some of you may remember her from years past. She had stopped in to visit me while her husband, Dr. Chuck Hewitt, may he rest in peace, was attending a meeting there. On the bedside tray were the cup of ice chips and a spoon. She may have asked me if I needed some of the ice chips. I can't recall because I was still quite groggy from the anesthesia and other medications. She took that cup and began giving me spoons of the ice chips. As groggy as I was, I felt so moved, so nurtured, and so cherished by this simple act of kindness. There are more stories, many more than I can go into now. So many stories when people here have been there for me, supported, loved, and challenged me. When people have made the community beloved. No doubt, you have stories of people stepping up and having your back. So this is the moment in the service when we show our gratitude for all the ways this church, this beloved community has had our back, and ensure this secure space can continue bringing us all together. You may give by check, cash, or through the text donation, which will appear on the screen shortly. Will the ushers please come forward? Thank you for your generosity.
I was visiting my brother Greg in Oregon several years back, having a good time, doing brotherly things, watching brotherly movies, making brotherly jokes and noises, you know what I mean. Not sure how it happened, but the conversation turned to our dad, which eventually turned serious. Our dad, Don, died nearly 2 decades earlier, when I was 14 and Greg was 37. Greg had been living on his own in Florida for quite some time at that point. I was living in Illinois with my mom, my sister, and until April 9th, 1998, with my dad. Less than an hour after my dad had a massive stroke and brain bleed, he was in a coma and breathing through a ventilator. The doctors were clear that if we opted to keep him alive, there was zero chance that he would ever regain consciousness. Amid the flowing tears, my mom, sister, and I agreed this was no way to live, for him or for us. We agreed to let the doctors remove life support, and within minutes, my dad was gone. We were on the phone throughout this horrible day, giving constant updates to Greg and my other sister, Lisa, also grown and living on her own in another state. But no matter how many updates we gave, it was impossible for them to know exactly what the doctors were saying, exactly what was happening. Everything was hearsay from us, hearsay awash with the heavy emotions of the day. Because of this sad yet unavoidable colander of information, Greg never knew the full picture, a recipe for relational disaster. For nearly 20 years, the story Greg remembered about that day was that we made a hasty decision to take my dad off life support, a huge decision in which Greg didn't feel fully involved. For nearly 20 years, he held back the fester of resentment. That is, until our casual turned serious chat while catching up in Oregon on an otherwise ordinary day, when I told him we made our terribly hard decision after the doctor told us directly, and I quote, "We can keep him alive, but sadly, he will never be anything but a vegetable." When I shared this part of the story with him, a part that I remembered vividly having been there in person, a part that somehow slipped by him for so many years, you could see the weight lifted from his soul. He said, "Thank you, Nick, for telling me that. I always wondered if there was a chance he could make it. Knowing there wasn't makes me feel so much better." Indigenous author and lecturer Thomas King says, quote, "The truth about stories is that that's all we are," end quote. We are a series of interconnected, ever-evolving stories, stories told and retold, stories that we shape, stories which shape us, stories which connect, and stories which disconnect, which highlight or obscure. And whether we like it or not, once we hear a story, we are forever changed by that story. You can never take it away. All that is to say, stories have tremendous power. The stories that we hear and experience, and the stories that we tell. And therefore, stories require critique, curiosity, and most importantly, care. Without careful attention and intention, untended stories may just damage our souls, our relationships, our communities, entire groups of people, maybe even the world. The huge implications of what stories we tell and how we tell them are witnessed no more clearly than in the context of religion as it intersects with world history, as it intersects with cultural colonization. Powerful stories were and are used by the powerful to retain power. Yet, all stories have power, which means that we all have power. A reshaped or entirely different narrative can have a dramatic impact. For example, what if we messed with the second Judeo-Christian creation story found in the book of Genesis, the one with the forbidden apple that dominates the narrative? Once again, quoting Thomas King, he says, "What if the creation story in Genesis had featured a flawed deity who was understanding and sympathetic rather than autocratic and rigid? What if the animals had decided on their own names? What if Adam and Eve had simply been admonished for their foolishness? What kind of a world might we have created with that story?" End quote. Until relatively recently, the story generally told about Unitarian Universalism is that it's mostly a religion by and for wealthy, highly educated white folks. The more that story was told, the more it becomes true. Many congregations had a famous Unitarian Universalist throughout history poster hanging somewhere in the building that included us. The poster conspicuously included no distinguishable people of color. None. Zero. Nada. And yet, people of color have always existed in our space, in our faith. A more complete, holistic, more holy poster was created by a UU church in Ohio, near Cleveland, just a few years back. A poster which displays many of the same prominent white Unitarian Universalist and Unitarian Universalists throughout the centuries. I mean, yes, we have been around for centuries. Yet it also intentionally includes many more people of color, roughly half of those pictured, in fact. Now, those folks weren't created out of thin air. They were just being left out of the narrative. I'm glad that's the poster that we now display here, conspicuously hanging on our hallway bulletin board. I encourage you to take a look. There are some really cool people on there. But worse than omission of those folks in our narrative is when tired old narratives of Unitarian Universalism continue to be honored and celebrated at their expense, and done so when it is clear there were and are Black and Indigenous people of color in the room, somehow still overlooked. Reverend Rebecca Savage shares this story about the Jefferson Ball at the UUA General Assembly in 1993.
I play this moment over and over again in my head. The day I heard of the Thomas Jefferson Ball, hosted by Unitarian Universalists in 1993. As a person of color, raised in a UU congregation, I felt a shiver down my spine as I learned something new and unsettling about the faith that I call home. You may be wondering why this gathering of UUs in 1993 struck me as a profoundly memorable and painful moment. Beloveds, this is why. Attendees were encouraged to wear period clothes to the ball to celebrate Thomas Jefferson, who attended Unitarian churches. In the spirit of welcome, those who conceived of this social gathering did not take into account the centering of whiteness by asking people to attend in period dress. The organizers forgot or ignored the fact that in Jefferson's time, we Black and brown folks would have been slaves, property to be traded, sold, brutalized, and subjected. The matter was taken up at General Assembly when delegates challenged the appropriateness of holding the event. Delegates voiced their concerns by reading a statement of protest. In response, the organizers and other leaders gathered to consider how to proceed and came to a decision. The Thomas Jefferson Ball would proceed as planned. I asked myself, what would I wear? Would I be a house slave, favored for my lighter skin and good hair? My skin is a light brown that my daughter refers to as cinnamon, a product of a beautiful multiracial family history. Would I catch the eye of a white man who could leverage any opportunity to take my body as his property? What would I wear? Would I have worn shoes on my work-worn feet? Would I have stretch marks across my belly from babies that were taken away from me to sell to other plantations? Would I sing to myself faithful, mournful songs of liberation, dreaming for the day I can taste freedom for myself and my family? What would I wear? Would I be allowed to come in through the front entrance or directed to the back to enter through the kitchen with the other slaves and servants? Would I be allowed to drink from the same punch bowl, eat from the same platters? Would I sit with the other people of color in a separate room or at the back of the gathering? Would I be permitted to look at a white person in the eye or even speak their name? What would I wear, dear beloved you use? Tell me, what would I have worn to attend this ball? What period clothes would represent who I would have been in Thomas Jefferson's time?
Reverend Savage is perfectly modeling the kind of intentional appraisal necessary when a story is harmful, when a story boxes somebody or a group of people out, when a story boxes somebody or a group of people in. As a person most impacted by the thoughtlessness of this story, she and other BIPOC UUs shouldn't have to be the ones doing this emotional labor. If white folks don't do it, we're reaffirming that's who we are. The truth about stories is that that's all we are. Yet we don't have to stay that way. To move beyond those stories which perpetuate the centering of some at the expense of others, to center those who are often left on the margins or those intentionally targeted by our stories, requires adding the storied perspective of those folks. Or better yet, let's tell those stories left untold. That's what we'll do in Faith Formation following worship today. We'll highlight our faith journey toward wholeness. We'll highlight the liberating anti-racist work of Unitarian Universalism and tell the stories of the BIPOC people and caucus groups who continue to bump us in that direction. I truly hope that you'll join us for that deeper dive. Before then, though, I admittedly often find myself highlighting how Unitarians like Thomas Jefferson and some Universalists are connected to the creation of the United States, the American story. When I give a UU elevator speech to folks who are unfamiliar with our tradition, I often tell them with a weird sense of pride, we're intricately tied with the history of this country. I think it's because some degree of anxiety about scaring people off who may otherwise disregard our validity as a religion without that connection. In doing so, am I unintentionally telling a UU creation story that keeps us from moving forward, moving beyond moving toward love. So that's the story I chose to burn today. Not to get rid of, but to alchemize, transform into something more beautiful, more whole, more holy. Once we hear a story, we are forever changed. It will always be a part of us. We can't leave those stories behind, not totally. We can't forget them. Doing so would be to our detriment. Doing so risks repeating the worst of us. The stories we choose to tell, to center, require discernment, investigated with reason, steeped in love. Every story we tell has the capacity to be an inclusive, liberating, sacred text, and the capacity to be a prison of exclusivity. And therefore, all our stories require great care, because we require great care. So as we fully enter this next trip around the sun, let's embrace stories that liberate. Let's embrace versions of stories that shift our perspective, stories which free us from the captivity of monocultural narratives. And as we continue to create beloved community, may our intentional actions create new stories of liberating love. May we live new stories of liberating love in this new year and beyond. Blessed be.
Would you rise in body or spirit for our closing hymn, 1028, The Fire of Commitment?
Vanessa Titong says, like the flame of the chalice, may the flame in our hearts burn, remaining unextinguished. May it ignite our energies, our drive, our resolve to dream, to build, and live into the world that good which exists for now only in our imaginings.